Well, hello, Tom from Knife Delights here, coming to you from the observation deck. Today we're going to be discussing the simple joys, the simple pleasures of carrying a slip joint pocket knife. EDC is what we call it today, everyday carry. Well, it used to be we didn't have such a fancy name. Pulling out a simple slip joint out of your pocket, well, that's just something you did. You carried every day. Just about every man, young man, and most boys had their slip joint in their pocket. And my personal experience is, if I didn't have mine and I needed to borrow a knife, I say, "Hey Dad, can I borrow your knife?" I got the scowl and the question, "Where's yours, son?" There was one cutlery company, Imperial Knives, that reigned supreme during the mid-20th century. They were known by being inexpensive, yet well-built and dependable edge tools. The Imperial Knife Company was founded in 1916 by Felix and Michael Mirando, who were immigrants from Italy. Original home of the company was in Providence, Rhode Island. Both Felix and Michael started in the U.S. knife business as employees of Empire Knife Company, located in Winsted, Connecticut. The Imperial Knife Company eventually grew to become the largest knife manufacturer in the United States. Now, a man's pockets can fill up quite quickly. One of the things that Imperial did to help alleviate all those things in your pocket is they came out with this innovative key knife. So here you have your knife blade, and here you have a key. And these were very popular with automobile dealerships. They could put their advertising there. If you bought a new car, why, they would cut the key and mount it to this knife. And there's a little place down in there. You can take this apart and you can swap the keys in and out. Say you get a new car and need a new key, why, you could take the old one out and put the new one in. So there you go. You had your car key and your knife all in the same. Well, those brothers must be, well, a little bit trickster in them. And some people have seen these before, but just in case you haven't, but they came out with the mystery knife. Yeah, there's no nail nick on it. How do you open this knife up? You hand this to somebody and ask them to open it for you, and they can't get it open. So it was a trick knife. There's a little roller right down in here that catches on this. So to open it up, you'd have it tip up, squeeze in on the blade, tap or shake a little bit. The roller would fall down here, and unlatch it there. So yeah. You know, now it's closed up again. So, the Imperial trick knife. I don't have a lot of history on Imperial prior to the 1930s, but it was in the early 30s that Imperial bought the rights to hammer brand knives from New York Knife Company. Knives were stamped hammer brand until the 1950s. Now, hammer brand knives were known for pretty much shell construction. They were, I guess you would say, inexpensively built, cheaply built, but they were inexpensive, but they weren't, quote, cheap knives because they performed well. But they all had these shell covers on them. And here's an early example of a hammer brand Barlow right there. And I've got a couple of fish knives, hammer brand. And there's one more. Now, if these all look familiar to you, that's because eventually they did away with the hammer brand line and just started stamping them with the Imperial tang stamp, even though it was probably the very same machinery, very same patterns that they used on the hammer brand. Imperial was always trying to find a product for everybody's need. If you worked in an office, if you wore a suit, you know, dress pants and a tie, you couldn't really carry a big heavy knife around. So, although the bail is missing on this one, there'd be a bail here, and this would be somewhat of a watch fob knife. So you could attach this to your watch fob, and you could poke it through your vest pocket and have this on the back side of your vest pocket, and that was another way to keep you from losing your pocket watch or from somebody stealing it from you. So there was one little option. And it gives you just enough blade there for simple little cutting chores. If you were going to dress up and go out, maybe you wanted a fancier little knife, something like this. And it could also be your keychain. And there was a place right on here. I don't see it on this model. On some of the models there was a blank area there where you could engrave initials. So there again, just a nice little pen knife here. That way you always had a blade, but it wasn't big and bulky. Or they also made these nice little jackknives like this, nice and small, but are in and around the office to open an envelope, to cut a piece of string. These things worked out very well. Lightweight, indiscreet, not heavy. A knife for every need. Imperial was always adding new lines of knives, and one of the lines of knives they came out with was the Diamond Edge. Now the DE trademark was used by Shapley Hardware from 1864 to 1960 and by Valtest from 1960 to 1965. In 1967, Imperial acquired the trademark. It is possible that Taylor Brands LLC acquired the rights to the trademark Diamond Edge and the DE logo around 2005 when they purchased the intellectual property of the Imperial Trade Corporation. So here we have a couple of examples of the wood-covered or wood-handled Diamond Edge. And these were made in Ireland, and we will get to the Ireland saga later. There's one Diamond Edge. There's another one with the wood. But they did also make some of the Diamond Edge knives with the regular shell covers to them also. From 1976 to 1985, Imperial came out with the Frontier Powder Horn series of knives. And on some of them, those with wooden handles, they had a double eagle blade etch. And I'll show you some examples of those. We'll start out here with this little small Stockman Frontier. See that powder horn in there? And I believe these was called charcoal. Just a nice little Stockman. What a handy dandy little knife. Again, if you had to wear dress clothes or something, but you still wanted a Stockman, you could still carry something like this. There's one of the Frontier. They also modernized, came out with some modern knives. And here's an advertising knife from Union Pacific. You see it says Frontier USA P-4 Imperial Stainless. Just a very nice lockback knife. So I get home and start editing the video and realize I didn't show you any of the Imperial Double Eagles. These are from the Frontier series. And if they have the wooden handles, have that Frontier Double Eagle. It's a nice lockback here, advertising knife with quality Land O'Lakes feeds. And then we have this really nice Stockman right here. Got that really nice pole on it. Just a wonderful, beautiful knife. Frontier. Well, if you're a lover of the outdoors, you like to hunt and fish, camp, just be outdoors, have a knife with you, hey, Imperial had you covered there too. As a matter of fact, they had a series of knives called the Jackmaster series, and they came out with this little miniature 6-bladed all-purpose knife. So once again, saving you some pocket space, aren't they? Lots of little tools. But they also have their hunting knives. This is an Imperial. One of their hunting knives here. And talking about saving space and being ahead of the time, look at this combination set here. Now this is under the Hammer brand. But again, they ended up discontinuing the Hammer brand. But they would make this very same pattern knife, and instead of having the Hammer brand tang stamp, they would just stamp it Imperial. So you had your fixed blade, and right along with you, you had your scout knife, the Camp King. And this one is stamped, again, with the hammer brand. Camp King is a product of Imperial Knives. Here's another Camp King, but this one's under the Imperial. Yeah. Well, we got to step back in time here just for a moment, and I just need to explain that the Imperial Knife Associated Companies was formed in 1947, and it was a consortium between the Schrade Walden, Ulster, and Imperial companies. In 1978, ICAC purchased the Jowica factory in Listowel, Ireland, and they also merged with Schrade. So things were getting tough in the late 80s. The competition was very stiff. So for one, they did move their production over into Ireland, thinking that they could save some money that way. And they also started coming out with some really budget knives. Some examples of those budget knives are from the Apex series. And these were just Zytel covers. They're very lightweight. They're not bad knives, but as you can see, you know, they're not super duper heavy duty. You can see there, Imperial Ireland. So this is the Apex series. That hawkbill. You got this lockback knife. You have this about a medium-sized stockman, small to medium-sized stockman, and this pen knife. And I do believe there was a couple more patterns in the Apex series. Now, with a lot of knife history, it gets pretty convoluted sometimes. It's hard to follow who bought who and when did they buy it and when did this company buy this trademark and this and that. I hope I've provided you with some accurate information here. If something is incorrect that I have said, why, please leave me a comment below and set the record straight. Thanks for joining me out here on the observation deck as I went through some of my Imperial knives here. As you can see, they had a knife for every occasion, and they made them by the millions. Every little hardware store, mom and pop hardware store you went into, probably had an Imperial knife display sitting on their counter. Oh, those were the days. Yep, I'm remembering yesterday back to a simpler time. So, I'm going to close out this video now. I'm going to enjoy my coffee. I'm going to enjoy the peacefulness out here. But just remember, Imperial, they ruled. Imperial was the king of EDC.